What did you say? Say that again, would you? The laughter was so loud and harsh that even the soft jazz playing in that opulent Manhattan penthouse seemed to wither away in its presence. Mia, who stood frozen while clutching a small red velvet box, suddenly felt a wave of terror. The man standing before her, the man in whose eyes she had been searching for her life for the last 6 months, looked more heartless in this moment than a total stranger. I said, "Happy birthday, Daniel." Her voice trembled. A thick lump of unshed tears was lodged in her throat, and she tried in vain to swallow it. I made this myself for you. I crafted it with my own hands. Daniel Thompson practically snatched the box from Mia's shaking hands and held it high in the air so his wealthy, elite friends standing around them could see. Look at this, guys. Miss Mia made a gift for me herself. Ethan, Daniel's closest friend, stepped forward with a mocking grin. Wow, Daniel. It looks like your love spell is really working. What's inside? A diamond ring or an expensive Rolex? Daniel opened the lid with pure contempt. Inside was a handmade card and a cheap bottle of perfume, a scent that probably cost less than the polish on Daniel Thompson's designer shoes. Daniel pulled out the card and began reading it aloud in a mocking tone. To the most special person in my life, who taught me how to live. Daniel left the sentence unfinished and burst into laughter. It was the kind of laughter drenched in humiliation, poison, and boundless arrogance. Taught you how to live? You stupid, foolish girl. Daniel. She could barely whisper his name. Her heart was sinking. This wasn't the Daniel who, until last night, was assuring her over the phone that he would fight his entire family for her. Address me as Mr. Thompson, he suddenly roared. The smirk vanished from his face, replaced by the deep-seated hatred he had harbored for this girl since childhood. Have you looked at your status? Do you even know your place? Hey, Daniel, let the poor thing go. Look at her crying, Liam chimed in, laughing. Every eye in that high-profile party was fixed on this solitary girl who looked like she wanted the earth to swallow her whole. Let her cry, Daniel said ruthlessly, throwing the card at her feet. She needs to learn the difference between dreaming like a Hollywood movie and the bitter reality of New York. He stepped forward, so close that she could smell his expensive cologne, the same scent that once felt like a sanctuary to her, but today felt like it was suffocating her. How did you even have the audacity to think that I, Daniel Thompson, would ever include a girl like you in my life? His voice was low, but it cut deeper than a sword. But you told me. Her lips quivered, tears now flowing uncontrollably down her cheeks. You said you loved my simplicity. You said you would take me out of these circumstances. All those promises? Daniel let out a booming laugh and turned to his friends. Did you hear that? Promises. Hey, Ethan, ask her who made those promises? Ethan, stifling his laughter, said, Sweetheart, oh sorry, Miss Mia. Those promises weren't made by Daniel. They were made by the character Daniel had to play to win the bet we set. A bet? The word escaped her lips like a sob. Yes, a bet! Daniel turned back toward her. His eyes held the same old hatred he felt as a child when his stepmother brought her maid into his father's house. Remember 3 months ago in the college cafeteria? Ethan said you were so old-fashioned, so boring, and so pathetic that no handsome guy could even talk to you for 2 minutes. I bet that I could not only get you to talk to me, but make you so crazy for me that you'd be willing to do anything. Mia's face turned deathly pale. The ground felt like it was vanishing beneath her feet. Those 3 months, the long drives, the late-night phone calls, the secret meetings in Central Park. Was it all a lie? Was she nothing more than a game? No, Daniel, you're lying, aren't you? She tried to grab his arm, clinging to one last shred of hope. You're just acting like this in front of them, right? You love me. You swore it. Daniel jerked his arm away as if something filthy had touched him. Don't touch me, he screamed. And love? With you? Have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror? You have no class, no brains, no family background, and no manners. You're the daughter of my stepmother's nanny, and I am the heir to the Thompson empire. Do we even belong in the same world? But Daniel, the heart. You are an ignorant, uneducated girl. How did you even imagine Daniel Thompson would love you? It was all just a prank. That sentence hit her brain like a sledgehammer. Silence descended upon the room. Daniel's tone was so final and insulting that even some of the girls present looked intimidated. "A prank?" she repeated. Her voice was so faint only Daniel could hear it. "Yes, a prank. A joke," Daniel explained further with cold cruelty. "Look at me. I've hated you since childhood. You came into that house with the woman who took my mother's place. I wanted to ruin you. I wanted to break your heart just to remind you of your status. And look at you today, standing here as a spectacle in front of my friends. Mission accomplished." He waved his hand toward his friends. "What do you say, boys? How was my acting? Do I deserve an Oscar?" "Brilliant, man. We admit it, Daniel. Look at the poor thing. She still can't believe it." The room erupted in laughter and applause. They were all laughing. Their faces seemed to distort and spin before her eyes. The man she thought was her savior turned out to be the ringmaster of this circus. She looked down at the handmade card lying on the floor where she had written, "For the most special person in my life." Her tears fell onto the card and the ink began to bleed, just as all the color in her life was dissolving into darkness. "Now get out of here," Daniel ordered. "Don't ruin my mood any further, and don't you dare try to cross my path again. This was just a trailer. If you show your face to me again, I'll ruin you so badly that even your mother won't recognize you." Mia slowly lifted her head. There were no more tears in her eyes, only a strange desolation, a hollow emptiness that screamed that something inside had died. She looked into Daniel's eyes one last time. She didn't complain, she didn't curse him, and she didn't ask any questions. Questions are asked where there is hope for an answer, and curses are given where a bond is broken but a connection remains. Here, the connection was a lie from the very start. For a moment, the silence of her gaze unsettled Daniel. He expected her to cry, to scream, to fall at his feet and beg. But she had turned to stone. "Didn't you hear him? Get out!" Ethan grabbed her by the arm and shoved her toward the door. She stumbled but didn't fall. She gripped her cardigan tightly, took one last look at the card on the floor, and turned away. Behind her, the roar of laughter rose again. "Damn, Daniel, you really are ruthless. But that was fun. Did you see her face?" She kept walking, out through the penthouse corridor and into the elevator down to the street. The New York night had grown deep. The cold wind pierced through her, but she couldn't feel the chill. The sentence was still ringing in her ears. "You are an ignorant, uneducated girl." She stepped out of the gate and vanished into the shadows of Times Square. The security guard saw her leaving, perhaps even called out to her, but she never looked back. Daniel and his friends continued their celebration. Champagne was popped and the music resumed. Daniel Thompson was drunk on his victory, unaware of what he had lost that day. He assumed Mia would go home, cry, and eventually be forced to live that same humiliated life. But he was wrong. Mia didn't go home that night. When morning came, her bed was empty. No one even bothered to look for her. They all thought she was hiding somewhere, crying, and would eventually return. A day passed, then 2, then a week. Mia did not return. Daniel Thompson didn't realize it at the time, but after that evening, that ignorant and uneducated girl vanished as if she had never existed. Not at a relative's house, not with any friend, not in any hospital in the city. It was as if she had evaporated into thin air. 3 years later. For Daniel Thompson, these 3 years weren't just the changing of dates on a calendar. Every passing moment felt like a splinter driven into his chest, making it hard to breathe. The Daniel who once laughed was now a cold-hearted, ruthless business tycoon with nothing but desolation in his eyes. What had he not done in these 3 years? Police, private detectives, newspaper ads. He had searched every corner of America. He looked for her like a madman. Railway stations, bus terminals, even homeless shelters. He saw a glimpse of Mia in every girl he passed. In every breath, he heard that sentence, "You are an ignorant, uneducated girl." And then he would burn in the fire of remorse. He had fallen in love, far too late, painfully so, but with an overwhelming intensity. Today was the annual gala for Allied Business Firm at the most expensive hotel in Chicago. Daniel was there, but his mind was wandering as usual. He held a drink in his hand, leaning against a pillar, watching the faces filled with artificial laughter, with utter boredom. Suddenly, all the lights shifted toward the main entrance, and Daniel Thompson's breath hitched. There she was. No, it couldn't be. It couldn't be Mia. Daniel rubbed his eyes and opened them again. On the red carpet stood the highly influential Senator William Hayes, and walking beside him, arm in arm, was a woman dressed in a floor-length black silk gown, the girl Daniel had only seen in his dreams for the last 3 years. But this wasn't the Mia he knew. This wasn't the timid, frightened, plain-clothed Mia. This was someone else. She walked with immense confidence. There was an air of arrogance hidden beneath the layers of her makeup, and her eyes held a spark that only comes from power and authority. Daniel's heart felt like it was going to burst out of his chest. The glass slipped from his hand, shattering into a million pieces on the floor, but he didn't care. He was drawn to her like a magnet. The couple reached the center of the dance floor. Soft music began to play. William placed his hand on the girl's waist and pulled her close. Blood rushed to Daniel's eyes. This sight was worse than death. His Mia, in the arms of another man. He pushed through the crowd. People watched him in surprise, but Daniel Thompson didn't care about anyone today. He marched straight onto the dance floor and abruptly stepped between William and the girl. He grabbed Mia's arm roughly and pulled her toward him. "Mia!" Daniel's voice carried 3 years of pain, anger, and longing. The music stopped. Silence fell over the hall. Every eye was fixed on the three of them. The girl lost her balance for a moment, bumping into Daniel's chest. She immediately regained her composure and jerked her arm out of Daniel's grip. She looked at him. There was no recognition in her eyes, no love, not even the hatred Daniel was expecting. There was only the look of a stranger and deep annoyance. "Excuse me?" Her voice was the same melodic tone, but the delivery was so cold that Daniel felt frozen. "How dare you?" "Stop the act, Mia," Daniel growled, staring into her eyes. "Where did you disappear to? Do you have any idea where I haven't looked for you? I went crazy looking for you, and here you are, with him?" He tried to grab her hand again, but this time William Hayes stepped between them. He placed a hand on Daniel's chest and pushed him back. "Mr. Thompson!" William's voice was thunderous. "Get a grip! What is this madness? How dare you treat my fiancé this way?" "Your fiancé?" Daniel repeated hysterically. Then he let out a laugh that could make anyone's skin crawl. "Senator, you're mistaken. This is Mia. Mia Anderson. My Mia." He looked at Mia again. "Tell him, Mia. Tell him you know me. Tell him this is all a lie." Mia calmly adjusted the diamond necklace around her neck. The expression on her face was of pure distaste, like a wealthy socialite looking at a filthy beggar. She looked at William and spoke in perfect English. "William, who is this rude man? And why does he keep calling me Mia? Is there no such thing as security at this party?" Daniel felt as if a dagger had been driven through his heart. "You're denying you know me?" he screamed. "Look into my eyes, Mia. I'm Daniel, the Daniel you made that card for, the Daniel you were madly in love with. Have you even forgotten your love?" A mocking smile played on Mia's lips. She took a step forward and looked Daniel up and down as if he were a thieving servant in her house. "Listen, mister," she warned, raising a finger. "I don't know what kind of cheap romance novel hero you're trying to be, but you are crossing the line. My name is Jaisha, and I am soon to be Mrs. William Hayes. And as far as love goes," she cast a look of pure contempt at Daniel, "my standards could never be low enough to love an emotional and psychological wreck like you. Look at yourself in a mirror. Your condition suggests you need a very good therapist." "You're lying." Tears began to stream down Daniel's face. "You're just taking revenge, aren't you? Revenge for that night? I admit I made a mistake. I regretted it so much. Mia, for God's sake, stop this act. I'll die without you." Daniel was about to fold his hands in front of her when William gave him a powerful shove. Daniel stumbled back into a waiter. The glasses on the tray shattered as they hit the floor. The entire hall was watching the spectacle, and the flashes of the paparazzi's cameras began to go off. "That's enough," William roared. "Mr. Daniel Thompson, your business empire doesn't give you a license to insult any woman's dignity. Just because my fiancée is incredibly beautiful, you thought you could fake a past acquaintance to get close to her." William looked at the crowd and said loudly, "Are you all seeing this? This is the true face of our corporate world. A girl from a respectable family is being harassed in public, and the excuse is that he knows her." "Shut up, William!" Daniel lunged toward him in rage. I know her past. She's the daughter of my stepmother's nanny. She lived in my house. Quiet! The voice wasn't William's, it was Jaisha's. She stepped forward, coming so close to Daniel that only he could hear. If I were in your place, Mr. Thompson, she said in a low, poisonous voice, I would take what little dignity I have left and get out of here. Because the girl you are looking for died 3 years ago in a room in this city and corpses don't come back. That sentence froze Daniel in his tracks. That meant she recognized him. It was her. It was Mia. Mia, you… Guards! Jaisha turned and called out. Remove this man from my sight. He's ruining the mood of our event. Security guards immediately stepped forward. Daniel stood paralyzed. His eyes were glued to Mia's face. She could have recognized him if she wanted to. She could have melted seeing his agony. But there was ice in her eyes, an ice that was burning Daniel's very soul. Let's go, William, she said, taking William's arm. The atmosphere here has become very suffocating because of someone with such a lowly mind. William looked at Daniel with a triumphant gaze. If you ever show your face near my Jaisha again, Daniel Thompson, I will ensure that both your business and you end up on the street. Stop acting like a stalker. Daniel couldn't say a word. His words, his anger, his ego, it had all crumbled at that girl's feet. William and Jaisha turned away, her long black gown brushing against Daniel's shoes as it trailed on the floor. She didn't look back even once, just as Daniel hadn't stopped her from leaving 3 years ago. Today, the debt was settled. Whispers began to spread through the hall. What happened to Daniel Thompson? He must be on drugs. He lost his mind seeing such a beautiful girl. He's completely disgraced his family name. Daniel stayed there. The guards grabbed his arm, signaling him to leave, but he jerked his arm away. He stared blankly at the door through which Mia had walked out, swaying in William's arms. He remembered the moment he said, "You are an ignorant, uneducated girl." Today, that same girl had rejected him in front of all these people, calling him a psychological patient and a man of lowly thoughts. And Daniel Thompson, whose one call made entire boards of directors tremble, stood there helpless, powerless, and humiliated before his love. Beyond the vast French windows of the apartment, the city lights looked like a starry sky, but the atmosphere inside was entirely different from the noise outside. Quiet, yet incredibly heavy. Expensive carpets covered the imported wood floors, and the high-priced paintings on the walls spoke of the residents' immense wealth. Only a single lamp was lit in a corner of the lounge, its soft golden light falling on the figure sitting on the sofa. William Hayes set his glass on the table and fixed his deep gaze on the girl standing before him. She was by the window, facing the Chicago skyline with her back to William. She was still in the black gown, but her hair was now down, and she seemed lost in profound thought. "Jaisha," William called out softly. She didn't startle, she just turned slowly. Traces of exhaustion were on her face. "Yes?" she replied softly. William stood up and walked over to her, looking closely at her face. "You've been silent since we left the party." William gently took her arms. "I know what happened there shouldn't have happened. Daniel Thompson showed his lack of character, but why are you so disturbed?" She lowered her gaze. "I'm not disturbed, William. It's just that old memories are swirling around like dust." William tilted her chin up. "Tell me the truth, Jaisha. Was that the same Daniel? The boy you once vaguely mentioned? The one who rejected you?" A shadow flickered in Mia's eyes. She remained silent for a few moments, then took a long breath and smiled bitterly. "Yes, William. That was Daniel Thompson." William's jaw tightened. A wave of jealousy and anger surged through him. This was the man who had thrown away a diamond, thinking it was a pebble. He said with a mocking laugh, "And look at my luck. Today you are written in my destiny. That fool is still wandering while I have reached the destination." "Luck?" She repeated the word. She leaned against the window. "You call it luck, William, but I call it a cruel game of nature." "Why?" William sat on the carpet in front of her, taking her hand in his. "Because if he hadn't rejected me then, I wouldn't be here today." Her eyes were fixed on the void. "If he hadn't made a spectacle of my love that night, if he hadn't laughed at my background and my poverty, Jaisha would never have been born. That innocent, foolish Mia died that night, William. I've long forgotten the wounds he gave me, but the scars remain. Now, in place of those emotions, there is only ice. William kissed her hand. Tell me, Jaisha, what happened that night? You said you didn't go home, so where were you for those 3 years? How did you find me? Mia closed her eyes. The door to the past that she had locked away was opening again. That night, her voice was trembling. When I left that penthouse, I couldn't understand anything. My tears wouldn't stop. It was freezing, but there was a fire burning inside me. Daniel's words were sinking into my ears like molten lead. Ignorant, uneducated girl. I kept walking. I didn't know where I was going. It was 2:00 a.m. when I finally collapsed on a bus stop bench, exhausted. I had no money, no phone, and no courage to go back. So I decided that even if death came, I would not go back to that house. She paused and took a sip of water. William was all ears. Then a car stopped, she began again. A woman stepped out. She looked very dignified and kind. She must have been around 50. When she saw me sitting there crying alone, she approached me. Sweetheart, is everything okay? Why are you sitting here so late? Don't you want to go home? I told her through my tears that I had no home. I told her I was ruined. I thought she was an angel sent by God to help me. There was a strange glint in her eyes, a mix of hatred and pain. Her name was Madame Elena. She took me with her. She said she ran an institution where talented girls were refined. And you went? William asked. I had no choice, William. Hunger and cold make a person make every kind of decision, Mia said bitterly. But that institution, it wasn't a normal school. William's grip on her hand tightened. Everything was fine for 2 days. I got food and a bed to sleep on. But on the 3rd day, Madame Elena came to me. She looked at me from head to toe, like a predator looking at prey. Mia, you are very beautiful, but your appearance is too common. She told me that if I wanted to live in this world, I had to pay the price. There was no such thing as a free meal. I thought she would make me work. I said I'd do any job, but she just laughed. She said my hands weren't made for labor, but to rule the hearts of the elite. That's when I realized where I was trapped. Mia's voice choked. It was a grooming center, William, where desperate girls were prepared for high society. We were taught how to walk, how to speak English with an accent, table manners, makeup, designer fashion. On the surface, it was all under the name of a modeling agency, but in reality, she was preparing us to be companions for influential men. A look of intense rage appeared on William's face. I will never forgive that woman. She's gone now, Mia said flatly. But at that time, I was in her clutches. I tried to run away many times, but I was caught every time and punished severely. Then I realized that if I wanted to get out of this swamp, I had to learn the rules of the swamp. I strangled the Mia inside of me. I learned everything she taught. I learned to talk about business and politics. I learned to hide my tears behind makeup. I turned Daniel's insult into my strength, uneducated and ignorant. I swore I would become so educated and modern that no one could ever point a finger at me. Then came that evening. She looked at William. When Madame Elena sent me as a hostess to a high-profile charity gala for the first time. My job was just to welcome guests. I was strictly told that if any wealthy man wanted to talk, I was not to refuse. And that party was mine. William finished the sentence. He remembered that evening well. Yes. A light smile touched her lips. Your party. I was terrified, even though I was wearing an expensive dress and had a smile plastered on my face. Inside, I was trembling. It felt like every man's gaze was stripping me. But then I saw you. William said softly, You were different from everyone else. You were laughing, but your eyes were crying. I saw you standing alone on the balcony. Yes, I had run away there because a businessman was trying to grab my hand, she explained. You came there. You didn't say anything disgusting to me. You only asked, Doesn't this fake smile get exhausting? William nodded. I still remember your answer. You said, Sir, this smile is the price of my survival. If I get tired, I lose. That one sentence shook me. You weren't like other men, William. She looked at him with gratitude. You found out who I was and how I got there. And when you learned the truth, you didn't buy me. You freed me from that place. I couldn't leave you there, Mia. William became emotional. I didn't fall in love with you at first sight. I fell in love with your pain. I felt that giving this girl a new life was my purpose. You gave me the respect I had lost. You gave me the name Jaisha. You got me an elite education. You taught me how to handle business. Tears filled her eyes. People think I'm some girl from a prestigious family that you chose, but the truth is, you picked up a stone from the mud and turned it into a diamond. No, Jaisha, William disagreed firmly. You weren't a stone, you were always a diamond, just in the wrong hands. Daniel Thompson wasn't a jeweler. He was blind. He couldn't tell the difference between glass and a diamond. Mia let out a long breath. Today, when I saw Daniel, I thought maybe I would feel pain. Maybe old love would wake up. But William, I felt nothing but pity. The man who was telling me my place yesterday was ready to fall at my feet today. This is your victory, Jaisha. William wiped her tears. Victory? She asked. Maybe. But I paid for this victory with my innocence. Sometimes my heart longs to be that old Mia who could laugh freely, but that Mia is dead. Now there is only Jaisha, beautiful, rich, powerful, but silent inside. William pulled her to his chest. I will fill that silence, I promise. I will never let you miss the old Mia. And as for Daniel Thompson, if he dares to even look at you again, I will erase him. Mia leaned against his chest, looking at the rain falling outside. The drops hitting the glass felt like the tears of her past. William? She whispered. Yes, darling? Will Daniel still follow me? I saw a madness in his eyes. He isn't the type to give up easily. I'm afraid he might ruin our lives. He knows I am Mia. William stroked her hair with a dangerous smile. Let him come, Jaisha. Let him come. 3 years ago he was the hunter and you were the prey, but now the game has changed. Power is with us now. If he comes near the fire, he will be burnt to ashes. Just remember that you aren't a stray Mia anymore. You are the future wife of Senator William Hayes. Every finger pointed at you will be broken. Mia breathed a sigh of relief. In William's arms, she felt a security she had never known. But in a distant corner of her heart, a fear remained. The last look Daniel Thompson gave her, which held less regret and more obsession. Outside the French window, lightning crashed loudly, bathing the entire lounge in white light for a moment. Her heart throbbed with an unknown fear. William pulled away and kissed her forehead. Come on, it's very late. Get some rest. Tomorrow is a new day, and tomorrow we have to announce our wedding date. I want the world to see who William Hayes has chosen. Mia nodded. Yes, the wedding. But a question rose in her mind. Will Daniel Thompson let my wedding happen in peace? Perhaps not. And perhaps she wanted that too. She wanted to see how far Daniel could go now, not in love, but in the remorse that was enough to destroy him. She turned and headed toward her room. The sound of her heels echoed in the silence like a ticking clock. Behind her, William Hayes took out his phone and messaged someone. His face was serious. Double the security and keep an eye on every movement of Daniel Thompson. I want news of his every second. The opening ceremony of the newest outlet for New York's most famous fashion brand was at its peak. The glitz of the media, the city's elite, and the shining stars of the fashion world were all there. Mia was the guest of honor because this project was one of William Hayes's investments. She was surrounded by people, dressed in a sophisticated designer outfit. She had that same business smile on her face, but her eyes were weary. She was about to leave when a man suddenly blocked her path. She stopped and looked up. Daniel Thompson stood before her. His condition wasn't like before. His stubble was grown out. There were deep dark circles around his eyes, and agony was written across his face. The Daniel who once couldn't tolerate a single wrinkle on his suit looked completely disheveled today. Step aside, Daniel, she said in a cold tone, looking left and right to make sure no scene was being made. Just 5 minutes, Mia. Daniel's voice held a plea, the plea of a beggar. For God's sake, just listen to me for 5 minutes. After that, I'll do whatever you say. I will leave your life forever, I swear. Mia looked into his eyes. Moisture was floating there. She took a long breath and pointed toward a quiet balcony area on the side. 5 minutes. Not a second more, not a second less. They moved away from the crowd to a small terrace at the back of the store. Speak, she said, crossing her arms over her chest. What's left to say? A new taunt? A new insult? The insult is to me, Mia, done by my own ego. Daniel's laugh was brittle. Do you know what happened to me in these 3 years? I'm not interested. She turned her face away. You have to listen. Daniel stepped in front of her. That night when you vanished, I thought I had won. But the next morning when I woke up, my penthouse, my room, my life, everything felt empty. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I went out looking for you, Mia. I shouted your name everywhere. Mia, Mia, forgive my mistake. Tears began to flow from Mia's eyes. You say I played a prank? Yes, I did. I was a wretch. I was blinded by arrogance. But Mia, after you left, I realized that the prank wasn't on you. It was on me. I killed my own peace with my own hands. I love you, Mia, so much that if you could see inside my chest, every heartbeat would call your name. He fell to his knees before her. Forgive me. Give me any punishment, but don't say I mean nothing to you. I'll die, Mia. She watched him. For a moment, her heart softened. The same Daniel Thompson who once treated her like dirt was now sitting at her feet, crying. But then she remembered that night, the ignorant and uneducated taunt, the torture of the grooming center. She ruthlessly crushed her emotions and looked at him with stony eyes. Get up, Daniel. Her tone was flat. Daniel looked at her with hopeful eyes and stood up. Have you forgiven me? Forgiveness exists where there is a relationship, she said heartlessly. And we have no relationship. You just told your story. It was very painful. But Daniel Thompson, do you think your few tears can settle the account for my 3 years of hell? I know I am a sinner. No, you aren't just a sinner. You are a murderer, she interrupted. You killed the Mia who loved you. That innocent girl died 3 years ago. Now Jaisha stands before you, the fiancée of William Hayes. Don't lie, Daniel cried out in agony. Your eyes are still the same, Mia. I can see the longing for me in them. You can't marry William. You are only mine. Love? She laughed bitterly. You're mistaken. This isn't love. It's pity. And William is the man who accepted me when you threw me away like trash. He is my present and my future. She opened her bag and pulled out a gold-colored invitation card. Here. She held the card out to Daniel. What is this? Daniel's hands were shaking. It's my wedding invitation, she said expressionlessly. I am marrying William Hayes the day after tomorrow. I am inviting you specifically. Come and see with your own eyes what position an uneducated, ignorant girl has reached. Maybe then your conscience will find peace. Daniel held that card as if it were a burning coal. You are inviting me to your wedding? Yes, so you can know that there is no way back. She turned away. Make sure you come, Daniel. My happiness will be incomplete without you. She walked away quickly. Daniel stood there alone. He had the card in his hand and darkness in his eyes. He pressed the card to his chest and wept bitterly. The grand ballroom of the 5-star Chicago hotel was decorated like a bride. The scent of white roses was everywhere, and the crystal chandeliers sparkled. Every big name in the state was present. Daniel Thompson was there too. He wore a black formal suit. He stood in a corner of the hall where he could clearly see the stage. The noise of every congratulation felt like a wound on his heart. Then, the bridal entry was announced. All eyes turned toward the main doors. Mia, dressed in a white designer wedding gown and wearing diamond jewelry, looked like nothing less than a princess. Her beauty was breathtaking, but Daniel noticed that despite the makeup, she didn't have the joy a bride should have. Her eyes were downcast, and she looked very heavy-hearted. William Hayes was on the stage, waiting for her. When Mia reached the stage and stood with William, Daniel felt like he was suffocating. This was a sight he didn't have the strength to witness. He turned to leave when William's eyes fell on him. William started, looked at Mia, whose eyes were fixed on the floor, and then looked back at Daniel standing alone in the crowd. The judge officiating the ceremony had arrived. The marriage papers were on the table. "Shall we begin the ceremony, Mr. Hayes?" the judge asked. Silence fell over the hall. Mia closed her eyes. A tear broke from her lashes and fell onto her white gown. 1 minute. This was William Hayes's voice. Everyone looked at William in surprise. Mia also looked up, startled. William took a step forward. "What happened, William?" she asked softly. Instead of answering Mia, William scanned the crowd and called into the microphone, "Mr. Daniel Thompson, please come to the stage." Daniel felt like he had misheard. The necks of all the guests turned toward Daniel. In a state of total shock, Daniel slowly walked toward the stage. His heartbeat was erratic. When he reached the stage, William stood him beside him. Then he looked at Mia, who now looked frightened. "William, what are you doing?" Her voice shook. William took the mic and spoke to all the guests with a serious smile. "You must all be wondering why I called another man to the stage at the time of the wedding. The truth is, this ceremony is incomplete if the truth isn't told." He turned toward Mia. "Jaisha, for the past 3 years, I have sculpted you like a statue. I gave you this position. I gave you confidence. I taught you how to face the world, and I thought I had won your heart too." "You have won it, William," she said quickly, panic in her eyes. "No," William shook his head gently. "I have won your respect. I have won your loyalty. But your heart, it is still stuck where it was broken and thrown away 3 years ago." "That's not true," her voice choked. "Don't lie." William placed his hand on hers. "I have seen who you call out to when you cry in your sleep. I know whose memory tortures you when you are alone. And today, the sadness in your eyes isn't the joy of a new journey. It's the mourning of an incomplete love." He looked at Daniel. "And this man, whom you invited here just so you could hurt him. You didn't invite him to show him your success. You invited him because you wanted to see him close to you one last time. Because your love is hidden behind your hatred." Daniel stood paralyzed. He couldn't believe what was happening. William took a step back and placed Daniel's hand in front of Mia's. "I cannot marry a woman whose soul is imprisoned by someone else. I can be selfish, but I don't want to forcibly obtain a broken heart." "William." A flood of tears erupted from Mia's eyes. "You are so great, but I made a promise to you. Promises are for happiness, not for imprisonment." William smiled and wiped her tears. "I know you love Daniel, despite the fact that he gave you so much pain. And I also know that this Daniel is no longer that old, arrogant boy. Look into his eyes. You will find only remorse and true love." William placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Daniel Thompson, 3 years ago you lost your most precious asset. Today I am giving it back to you. But remember, if a single tear comes to her eyes this time, I won't let you find a place to hide anywhere on this earth." Tears were streaming from Daniel's eyes. He stepped forward and impulsively hugged William. "Thank you, William. You taught me how to live. I will never forget this favor." William patted him and silently stepped back. He signaled to the judge. "Sir, change the name of the groom on the marriage papers. Let it be written as Daniel Thompson." There was a stunned silence in the ballroom, followed by a roar of applause that shook the entire hotel. People were amazed at William Hayes's sacrifice and were cheering for him. Daniel now stood directly in front of Mia on the stage. She lifted her head and looked at Daniel. The ice of hatred in her eyes was no longer there. It had melted. There were years of grievances, but overclouding them all was the emotion that had never truly ended. "You were right, Daniel," Mia said in a low voice. "I tried so hard to hate you, but my heart always pulled me toward you." Daniel gently took her hand. "We both lost, Mia, so that our love could win." When the official declared Daniel and Mia husband and wife, she turned to see William walking out of the hall. He was disappearing into the crowd, alone, but with a sense of peace. He had sacrificed his love so that Mia's life could be complete. Daniel kissed Mia's hand, and she closed her eyes, feeling as though she had finally reached her destination after years of traveling. Camera flashes were sparkling, flower petals were falling on them, and Daniel and Mia, holding hands, were stepping toward a new life, forgetting all the wounds of the past. This was no prank. This was reality. The hardest test of love had finally ended.